I don't think she killed her own son. But I know for sure she killed me. And your Uncle Lula only be too happy to pull that fucking trigger.
Look, I helped raise Jukebox. As far as I'm concerned, she mine too. So when you put your hands on her, you put your hands on me. And you do the shit again, I'll kill you myself.
So this is something we become accustomed to in the Power universe, where family make threats to kill those of the same blood, because this is the game, and sometimes business does come first, which is the mentality that Monet put into her kids from when they were young, but also changing her stance after Drew was shot, and it's more often than not when there are consequences like Drew being shot or Raina being killed in Power, where we see characters change their stance on the game because of the impact it's having on those they love. Another example was how in Power, we started with Tasha telling Ghost this.
I saw the money you made last night. That's not more, it's less. You are the best at what you do. I just wanted to stay this way.
But she wasn't thinking about the long term, Ghost was, and it was only when she saw how the game destroyed the St. Patrick's beyond repair was when we saw Tasha change her mind and wanted to wreak out the game. Although this particular topic can be broken down into different perspectives about who really is responsible for the demise of the St. Patrick's. You've got Tasha, Tariq, and Ghost. They all played their part. But this is something the Thomas family haven't had as of yet, a real huge consequences or a death of a loved one. They've definitely had consequences. For example, Scrappy's death, Marvin taking his own product and doing a bid in Elmira, which is why he doesn't do that shit anymore, and we saw him turn it down twice when Toni asked, which is a character we're gonna come to later on in this video. But sticking with the theme of family killing each other, in Power we saw Ghost and Tommy at odds, where they actually did pull the trigger on each other, except Tommy hit Angela and Ghost unknowingly killed a Serb. In Power Book 2 Ghost, we've seen Monet threaten to put down Kane. She threatened to kill Diana not once, but twice. But the real theme we've seen in the Power universe is his father and son killing theme, with Ghost and Tariq, Tommy and Toni Teresi, Kanan killing his son Sean, Kane thinking he was supposed to kill Lorenzo, and in Raising Kanan, Kanan shooting but not killing Detective Howard. But could Rock really kill Marvin? So just to add some more background and context, Rock was pissed with Marvin about him putting hands on Duke. She wasn't going to say nothing at first, but him putting hands on Duke was like putting hands on her, and I'm sure Marvin won't make the same mistake twice. But you can never say never in Power, and it really would be crazy, but I highly doubt it, because Marvin is someone who's family first.
And when they come after my baby brother like they did, motherfuckers gonna hear me and nobody gonna get me to quiet the fuck down.
And to add to this, Marvin's someone who's shown a lot more layers to his character in season 2, and so far we haven't seen this aggressive side or him making any silly decisions like we did in season 1. Yeah, anyway, which is something I'm gonna come back around to with Toni later on. But so far we've actually seen him trying to fix his past mistakes. For example, he's not only Rock's second in command, he's taking the teachings from Renee and her anger management classes, trying to reconnect with Duke, and he also turned down Kanan when he wanted help. Whereas if this was season 1 Marvin, he would for sure have lost his temper by now, and we would have seen him help Kanan and probably make things worse. So Rock's threat was just putting Marvin back in his place, but at some point next season, not in season 2, because I do expect Lou, Marvin and Rock to make it out of season 2, but in season 3, I definitely expect a big consequence and a big death in the Thomas family that will completely change the dynamics, just like I mentioned for the rest of the Power universe. And this is something Rock hasn't faced yet. Rock hasn't really seen a big consequence for her to realize how the game shifting the dynamics of her family. She has also made other mistakes like Scrappy, but she hasn't faced the music as of yet. Or is she someone who's aware of the consequences but happy to sacrifice anyone on her way to power? I think we can argue both. She's big on family, but she's not afraid to use them to benefit her cause either, because frankly Rock, she doesn't give a shit. So far, she's been the glue at the dinner table, holding everybody together, but unbeknown to her, she's also the reason why there are certain cracks. And Rock really is capable of anything, and at times, she's scary. Scary because it's her way, and only her way, and we know what she's capable of. So even though she does find herself with her back against the wall with Unique and the Italians, you know she's not gonna go down without a fight, and I do expect her to find a way out. But her threatening Marvin was just putting him back in line. But no doubt, I wouldn't be surprised to see a kill within the Thomas family at some stage in the future, especially because Marvin alluded to it in season 1. But when and if this does happen, will this death or consequence to the family be enough to make Rock think twice about the game, just like Monet, Tasha, and also Tariq in Power Book 2 Ghost? Who knows? And one storyline and plot which they may revisit is D-Wiz's brother. Lou killed D-Wiz, but Kanan doesn't know it was Lou, and I do wonder what happens when and if Kanan does find out, as well as when D-Wiz's brother is introduced, because no doubt he will want revenge. Rock called him a wild boy who had guns hidden around the house, and so I expect him to show up and show this wild crazy side. But moving on to some trouble that's definitely coming Marvin's way is Toni. Now, I mentioned in my breakdown for episode 6, there was a reason why Marvin asked about Toni and questioned Marco about where he was based, and because he wants payback. So the synopsis for episode 7 reads, a botched agreement with Marvin and an associate threatens everything. Now, to understand this beef between Toni and Marvin a bit more, we're going to take it back a season and look at the history between Toni Deep and the Thomas family. Toni was introduced in the very first episode of season 1. When Lou and Rock came to the club they were selling their products in. The club owner was named Hugo and Toni was their publicist. We also saw her getting into a bit of a verbal altercation with Rock.
Yeah, this bitch doesn't know who she's fucking with.
Who you calling a bitch?
You, bitch.
Now, we all know Rock is someone who doesn't take shit, whether it's from Unique, the Italians, and definitely not Toni. So we quickly realized how ruthless she was when she killed Toni's dog, Bella, and burned her to death. And a quick Easter egg back to Power. Tommy and Holly had a dog named Belle, very similar to the name Bella, who was also killed by a character named Hugo. So just a small Easter egg. But as we move to the story of Toni and Marvin, they met in episode 2, where Marvin actually stood up for Toni when she was being harassed by some random, which ended up with Marvin being arrested. We then saw Marvin replacing her dog Bella with LT, who by the way, we haven't seen any of in season 2, but later taking LT back because Toni hadn't fed the dog in days. But where Marvin and Toni had this little fling, Marvin always made it clear they were never dating. Now fast forward to episode 8, Toni found herself in trouble with law enforcement.
Okay, I promise you, him and his entire family are dealers in Queens.
Yeah, it's so big time he's asking you for money.
I can't go to jail.
So instead, she made a deal with them to give them Marvin, and we saw a recording device under her office table, but Marvin was too clever to answer any questions. He also clocked the 2 undercover agents, but while he was helping Rock pull off this plan with Unique, he was stopped by the cops, who said they had a brand new warrant for a felony drug possessions with intent to distribute, and who was a CI? Toni Deep, but she skipped town and didn't testify at Marvin's hearing, so Marvin got off scot-free. Well, not scot-free because now he has to go to anger management classes, but it definitely is better than doing time, of course. Now, why Toni decided to skip town and not testify, who knows, but it definitely wasn't a coincidence. Maybe it was Rock who scared her off, or possibly Symphony, who didn't want to see or hear about another death. But Marvin did run into Toni and followed her, but closely behind Marvin were some cops. So bringing it back to the current timeline of Marvin finding out Toni's moved to Winchester and Marco also telling him he lives in Winchester, Scarsdale. I'm sure we can all put 2 and 2 together. Marvin will probably use Marco to get rid of Toni. And from day one, Marvin is someone who hates rats.
What about that rat we need to smoke out? Someone gave the stash, we need to find out who.
Could have been anybody.
So it is safe to assume the reason why Marvin's looking for Toni is because he wants to get rid of her for getting him arrested, and he probably sees her as a threat who could come back. And not to mention, she's a snitch, and we all know what happens to snitches in the world of Power. But again, this is Power, so I don't think things will go as planned for Marvin. He may use Marco to scare Toni or get rid of her, but this will put heat back on Marvin because we all saw how the cops were tailing him in episode 5. So whatever happens, Marvin will probably find himself with a bit of heat on him after episode 7, based on the synopsis and based on what we've seen. And I wonder what Rock will make of this, because she definitely won't be too pleased. But that's a breakdown of Rock's threat to Marvin and how he's gonna go for Toni. So drop all your thoughts down below. Is Marvin making a mistake, or is he right to get rid of Toni? As Lorenzo once told Drew, no loose ends. So maybe Marvin sees Toni as a loose end. But drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section. And of course, if you are new to the channel and you haven't done so already, then remember to smash the subscribe button if you want to see everything Power Book 3 and Power Universe related. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.